Tuesday night. Let's get right into it with Ann Coulter. Of course, she's a syndicated columnist and best-selling author. Her latest book, Adios, America, which we are going to get into in just 1 minute. But first, we're going to talk about the Confederate flag and whether or not it is a symbol of hate. Ann, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Your maiden voyage. You could make it. And before we dive into the delicious and inviting pool that is you, what do you think of the Confederate flag? I mean, obviously, it has gone through many political evolutions since you first started talking about it, I'm guessing in the early aughts. But where do you stand now?
Well, I'm glad the Democrats have come out foursquare against slavery. It's taken a while here. But if we're going to remedy the sadness of the Confederate side in the Civil War, I think we need to abolish the Democratic Party.
Yeah, well, a lot of people...
That's a much more hateful symbol. They were the ones who stood for it, and even after the North, i.e. the Republicans, won that war and finally got Democrats to give up slavery, Democrats continued to discriminate against black people for another 100 years.
What, was it the 20s or 30s when African Americans finally went over to
Thanks
the
to
Democratic
Republicans,
side?
and we were stopped discriminating 100 years later. No, it wasn't until about 100 years later. I mean, Nixon was still getting a good portion of the of the black vote.
Yeah, it's because of the Clean Air Act. Yeah. I think that's
well, I was thinking in reaction to this sick, horrible, evil act.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't we have to pass a global warming bill? Come on, it had nothing to do with the Confederate flag. He was also wearing a Gold's Gym T-shirt, and of course, it was a Democrat who was not a slaveholder or a segregationist. It was 100 years later who wanted the flag to go up on the South Carolina legislature on the 100th anniversary of the Civil War, beginning of the Civil War.
Yeah.
Contrary to every single show on MSNBC last night, which announced that they put up the Confederate flag because of their opposition to civil rights. And
I mean, it happened at the same time. They did put it up over the State House in 1962, and certainly
that was a year after that. First, Fritz Hollings put it up because I was wondering what happened. The war started in 61.
That was when they made
started it in
Great
61.
Cadillac. Okay, now I want to move on a little bit. I don't want to spend too long on this because I want to talk about your book. But first, I want to talk about you. Where are you from? Do you have
Connecticut?
Okay. Do you have a geographic? I guess. Do you have a horse in this race either way? Like, do you consider yourself a northerner?
Oh, you mean the southern thing? Well, I'm a student of American history, so I'm appalled by, though I'd really like to like Nikki Haley, since she is a Republican. On the other hand, she is an immigrant and does not understand America's history. The flag we're talking about...
You think immigrants can't understand the history?
Well, she doesn't. The Confederate flag we're talking about never flew over an official Confederate building. It was a battle flag. It is to honor Robert E. Lee, and anyone who fought knows the first thing about military history knows that there is no greater army that ever took the field than the Confederate Army, both blacks and whites from the South.
I understand that. And
in Mississippi, when it came up for a vote, 30% of blacks, this was within 10 years, 30% of blacks voted to keep the Confederate flag.
And those are historical facts. That is a rational argument applied to an emotional debate. And it's never going to take hold. But what I want to talk about in Ann's new book, Adios, America. See, look, woo! She takes on the country's broken immigration system, and she says the only way to begin to address the problems requires us to start with a 10-year moratorium on all immigration. So if you have a 10-year moratorium on legal immigration, what does that do about what you claim to be the problem of illegal immigration? How is that going to stop illegal immigration?
No. My complaint is not with illegal immigration. Republicans have a silicone chip in their brain that means Democrats say diversity is strength. Republicans say we love legal immigration. It's just no. This is a book about immigration.
Just immigration in general.
Not illegal immigration. I mean, I start with amnesty because that'll finish the country in 5 years, as opposed to the plan we're on now with legal immigration. But what I would like to do, and this is what I began thinking I do, is we just fix the rules. So we do it the way we did it pre-1970. Bring in immigrants who are better than us and make the country better than we are.
What about in the early 20th century? I mean, that's what Milton Friedman favors. Milton Friedman favored a time of illegal immigration because when you started these social programs and people came over for very different reasons than they did at the turn of the century.
Well, it's more than them just coming. Our rules are set up to make it virtually impossible for people to to come in and compete, for example, with Mark Zuckerberg for his job. They will be competing for Mark Zuckerberg's landscaper's job. We're not getting.
But there are people who say that's not the worst thing, because if you've got a landscaper,
well, the landscapers think so.
Well, not necessarily, because if you're working in a low-wage, low-skilled job for a short amount of time, creating capital, you know, you are A, adding to the economy, and B, bettering your life so you can go on to do
No, you're not
other
adding
things.
to the economy. You are
yes,
adding
you are.
to the income.
Immigrants are the grease of the wheel in the economy.
Well, that's just cliche, but
it's not. It
doesn't mean anything.
Study after study
okay, we'll discuss how this works. If you have low-wage immigrants coming in, taking more from the government than they're paying in, that isn't helping the economy. What it's helping is the employer. It may help the low-wage immigrant. It's definitely hurting the people who would be competing for that job, including recent immigrants.
Okay, so if you say that immigrants...
It's definitely hurting people who pay taxes, which unfortunately is only half the country. Now, the
but with E-Verify, even
if
they have false Social Security numbers, you still have a lot of immigrants who come into this country, work really hard, and pay taxes. Therefore, they're adding to the system. But also,
well, they're not paying
if you
taxes.
have, yes, they are. If you have a landscaper,
that is not
yes,
true.
they are. Someone who uses a Social Security number to get a job and an employer who uses E-Verify, they are certainly paying taxes.
No, they are not paying taxes. They are accepting more back in not only education,
now when you
which is vastly expensive.
When you say accepting more back, this is a point where we agree. And I'm wondering if your view would change if you ended the entitlement state. So if people were
that's not going to happen. End the law of gravity.
Well, I mean, it's also not going to happen that people are going to stop coming here. I mean, those are both theoretical propositions.
Well, sure, they stopped coming to Israel. Israel put a fence up and defended its country.
Shabbat shalom.
And so does Switzerland. In fact,
but in California, if you had people who could not, as you say, take more from the government, which is a debatable claim, would you therefore be more in favor of open borders?
Half of Americans don't pay taxes. But you're saying that these minimum wage workers are paying taxes?
A lot of them are, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of jobs that you pay in cash.
We were getting the wealthy immigrants who are contributing so much and paying taxes. Those aren't the
non-wealthy immigrants come here and they work their ass off. Okay, here's what you need. Honestly,
yeah, they can work hard, but that isn't the point.
Honestly, do you have Mexican friends? Do you have real Mexican friends?
This isn't about having friends. I have friends who are. It doesn't matter who my friends are. I care about my fellow Americans. I care about the middle class. I care about the working class. I care about Americans losing their jobs and immigrants losing their jobs. And they are the ones, the middle class, subsidizing the rich's cheap labor so they can underpay the maid because they may work hard, but oh boy, do they access
if you are paying
services.
a maid and you're paying a landscaper and you are paying a nanny, those are three jobs you are not doing. You are able to go out there and earn more money and therefore
may not
improve the economy.
It's apparently that every time they have to actually pay taxes on these maids, the rich say, oh, never mind. When they have to pay for a legal maid, as the New York Times has reported, oh no, that's too much. They want the middle class.
So we should have all union maids. We should have a maid union, and we should have people making a minimum of $50 an hour.
To do with it.
I mean, but that's where we're going, unfortunately. Okay.
A union has nothing to do with it. Of course, it's not unionized. It's an individual employee coming to your house, and you can get legal maids.
I have one last question
they don't want to pay
we're running out of time. Are you fun?
That's a silly question.
Yes, it is.
I don't answer silly questions.
Oh, Anne, come on.
To tell you something about me. No silly question.
Well, then I think the question answers itself. No, because I've heard from mutual friends that you are a very fun person. All right. Very good. Thank you, Anne. Adios, America. That's it. Bueno. Coming up.